Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to talk about how the Labour Party, particularly the part of the Labour Party that is very anti-Blair and Brown, actually created them and are potentially going to create a more permanent version of them for the future if they persist with what they're doing. But first, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So in this video, I need to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane because when I have only known one Labour leader ever be elected. The last Labour leader to win a general election that wasn't Tony Blair was Harold Wilson in 1974. And it was a very small majority he had as well, but it did last a few years. And there is a real danger here. So what we have on the left wing of politics in the UK, on the hard left, there's a lot of people with whom ordinarily, if I were to sit down with these people and just talk policies, we would agree on so much. If that's all we did was discuss policies, we'd agree on so much. But they have a real hatred for the centre left, a particular hatred for Tony Blair. I've always wondered why this is. And partly I think it's because he succeeded. Their hatred for Tony Blair and those who formed New Labour. It's because he succeeded, and it's something they don't want. Now, I'm sort of with them. I thought Tony Blair's time was not a wasted opportunity because he didn't waste the time as such, but he could have done so much more. There were things he did in terms of PFI, it's partial privatisation, which he shouldn't have done. There was no need to do that. There was no need to appeal to. People call it a right-wing policy. I actually, and it's easy for me to fall into that trap because from my point of view it is. But then you talk to someone on the right wing and they say, no, it's a left-wing policy. Because on the left wing, you know, we really believe that public services need to be funded by the state, controlled by the state. It's a waste of money to be using taxpayer money to put in the pockets of wealthy business people. But on the right, they want it fully privatised. Why should I have to pay for it? I'll pay for a service when I use it, is what the wealthy say. And that's the right-wing way of thinking. So when you've got this hybrid situation, when you're on the left, you see it as a right-wing policy, which I did for many, many years. And if you're on the right, you see it as a left-wing policy. In actual fact, it's a centrist policy. But I also didn't think he had he did too much of that as well. But never mind, that's my opinion, right? And that's all it is. There are many people who think what he did was good. What I thought he did, which was bloody good, was win general elections. He kept the Conservatives out of power for 13 years and they had the look of whipped dogs about them in Parliament all the time for all of those 13 years. He wasn't around for all of those 13 years. And what I came to a realisation was when I was much younger is that New Labour was created not by Tony Blair, although he was one of the architects. It was created by the hard left, the Michael Foot fans, the likes of Jeremy Corbyn. Those are the people who created it. And, you know, now, at the age I am now, where, remember, I've only known one Labour leader ever win a general election. And I'm in my 40s now. That's how grim a situation we are in. And I now know a lot of the history of politics in this country, and I have a lot of in-depth knowledge about it because I've studied it for so long. At the time that Tony Blair won that general election, I was about 20. I would have just been turning 21-ish. The general election would have been round about my birthday, in fact. I can't remember whether it was, give or take a day. I can't remember exactly in relation. So I was about 21. So I was still a young man, and I was very interested in politics. But at the same time, I was interested and knowledgeable about the politics that was happening at the time. Not necessarily the stuff that happened in the past. And I grew up, you know, I was there and I was sort of aware, but not really politically aware when Michael Foot, who is Corbyn's hero, was Labour leader and doing disastrously, not as disastrously as Corbyn. Corbyn has beat him on that record. And one thing that did occur to me, because this is when I started to read about what happened in the past, one thing that I couldn't understand was New Labour. I don't mean the policies, I don't mean the concepts. I understood that you had a centre-left group of politicians in charge of the party and that this is what they were doing. And I disagreed with the direction they were taking, but it was damn sight preferable to a Conservative government. But I couldn't understand the New Labour bit. Why call it New Labour? It's just Labour. I mean, you've changed the policies, you've changed the people. Because I was aware that Michael Foot and his policies were deeply unpopular in the country. Still, but this was this wasn't Michael Foot. And the policies were different. If people didn't like Michael Foot's policies, well, that's fine. These are different policies. I didn't understand why he had to rebrand it until I read into it more. And I now realise, and I realised some time ago, the reason was that people still didn't consider the Labour Party to be credible. They thought the whole basis of the Labour Party was not able to form a credible government. And this is now linking back to what's happening now, because that's exactly what was said about Corbyn. So in terms of what we know are the reasons why people who would have voted Labour ordinarily did not vote Labour. And the bulk of these people, they weren't necessarily ones who voted Conservatives instead. Some of them did. But quite a lot of them just didn't vote for anyone. They stayed at home. And that actually made the difference. If those people, the difference in this general election was not the people switching from Labour to the Conservatives. The results show this. It was the people who stayed at home. They cited as reasons for not voting Labour Jeremy Corbyn himself, which is a rather nebulous concept, but just the concept of Jeremy Corbyn. Secondly, Labour's Brexit position. Thirdly, that they didn't believe that Jeremy Corbyn could deliver on his policies. And this is very important. There's no reporting of anyone, like a significant group of people, having any problems with his policies, which is good, because they're good policies. Because they're not his policies, let's face facts. He's championed them, though. They had the issue that they did not believe that it was credible to be able to deliver them all. And there's certainly potentially some truth in that. There was a lot in the manifesto. It could have been slimmed down, and indeed should have been slimmed down. But that issue of credibility, and that's what Tony Blair faced. And I didn't really realise at the time until I read enough into it. People did not accept Labour as credible, so he rebranded. It was a different thing. This is New Labour, and it was called New Labour, and it was different. And people then bought into it. It was a marketing strategy, a bit like a failing company that changes the name of the company. It sheds the millstone of the old company name and adopts the new one. And so effectively, that the people that formed the Michael Foot group leadership, who lost the confidence of the British people, because people had voted for Labour governments in the past, and more frequently than was happening now. I mean, we're having a really long period of Conservative rule. He had to do that. So the hard left created New Labour. And here's the problem. Here is the problem that the hard left are creating for themselves. I said at the top, they're making their own monsters. They are so desperate to avoid another Blairite type leadership of the party. They're actually creating it, because if they get what they want, which is a leader who is just basically going to be a vassal, into a puppet for them, they will fail. They will fail badly, because they will still lack that credibility amongst the people. And what will happen is we'll be there. So we're already in a situation where it's been 45 years since a Labour leader that wasn't Tony Blair won a general election. 45 years already. And in 5 years' time, when we may have another general election, it'll be... No, hold on. Yeah, it'll be 50 years. I'm just making sure I'm getting this sort of right now. Ish. It was actually 1974, I think, when Harold Wilson won. Was it? 1974, 1975. Round about then anyway. It doesn't matter, give or take a year, for goodness sake. So it'll be 50 years then. 50 years. So anyone who's 50 years old or under will never have been alive when anyone other than Tony Blair won a general election. So let's say we lose that as well, because even a good leader might lose that, because there's a lot of work to do in the Labour Party. So then we get to the next general election. might be 55 years, you're now getting to the point where even people approaching old age, actually you're not allowed to be old these days, are you? Got to keep on working till you're dead. But people approaching what at one time might have been considered old age will have only known one person who ever won an election for Labour. Now imagine this. Let's say you are someone in the party who desperately wants a Labour government. You start to think, in 50 years, over 50 years in fact, the only person ever to win is Tony Blair. Maybe for modern politics, you have to adopt the policies of Tony Blair. That's where the danger comes. When people... Tony Blair won that general election because Tony Blair was good at winning elections. He didn't need all of those policies. Now, it's very difficult for me to prove that, of course, because we don't know. We haven't had a Tony Blair that had more left-wing policies. But I am convinced that Tony Blair could have won on that ticket. But he didn't. He felt that he had to completely rebound it. And what will happen is, if the hard left succeeds in what it wants to do, eventually there will be a snapback and people will just believe you have to go for the centre, and that means you have to adopt centrist policies. We'll win another general election, and then, do you know what? We'll be in a situation where in the past 60 years at this point, the only Labour leaders, because there'll be another one in 10, 15 years' time, whatever, another one will have won a general election on centrist policies, and people will just take the view that left-wing policies cannot win elections in this country, and you will kill them. Stone dead. Stone dead. And that is what I worry about, and that is why it is so important that we end up with a decent leader. I'm not saying a good leader could win the next general election, because there is going to be a fight in the Labour Party because the hard left are not going to let go. But they cannot be allowed to win, because for their own good, for the good of their policies that they want to see in place, they cannot win because they don't understand what damage they are doing. They are going to create New Labour Mark II, and that next time it'll be probably permanent. It will probably be permanent. It will just be accepted wisdom that you cannot win with very socialist policies. So those are my views on that. Let me know yours down below, as I know you will anyway. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then also please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.